you know, what I want is I want people to know that they can contact me, whether, you know, not just at the beginning, but during the process and during the term of the policy, know what you're paying for.
Hey everybody, happy Friday.
Mortgages and mimosas.
Yes.
There we go.
Cheers. Okay everybody, I'm really excited today. We have got Aaron here with the Moreno Family Agency Insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
So we want to talk today about just all things insurance. You know, some of the things that Aaron and I have been talking about is insurance premiums have been going up, and we want to talk about the why behind that. We also just experienced, you know, the hurricanes down in the Houston area. So wanted to kind of talk about, you know, people being prepared. Do they have the coverage that they need, and so on. And then what to do after. You know, after they, you know, what happens, the aftermath, basically.
Right, filing the claim. And,
Yeah.
You know, yep, exactly.
Yeah. So,
a lot of good questions.
Yeah. So what do you want to start with first?
Well, we can start with how expensive everything is in insurance, because I'm pretty sure that's the big topic on everybody's mind, especially the fact that inflation is terribly bad right now in general. So insurance is also taking a huge hit in Texas. And so, you know, any questions that you have on, you know, it being so expensive, or, you know, why is it so expensive? These types of things are usually what people want to know, especially right now as, you know, somebody's purchasing a home, they're assuming that, oh yeah, it's going to be, you know, $150 a month, maybe $100 a month extra on top of your mortgage payment. That's not the case anymore, unfortunately. And a lot of people are seeing that, and a lot of you know, mortgages are having to factor that in, you know, because of the fact that they, you know, it is so high that you have to at least look at it and say, okay, where's the location, you know, the location of the risk, all these other questions that maybe you're not thinking about in the process of purchasing a home, or even if you already have insurance and you're looking to move to a different carrier. Yeah,
so one of the things that Aaron and I were talking about is I had a client looking, and some people may have seen this on Facebook, about, you know, whether it's in, you know, near the coastline. You know, we talk about Dallas area having so much, you know, rain, wind, hail, and then we've got the hurricane down in the Houston area. So we're also talking about like rural areas. So kind of knowing, you know, depending on not just location, you know, as far as like in town, out of town, but, you know, where is the most weather, water, things like that. So one of the things that we were talking about with that being said is, you know, going back to the premiums increasing, you were talking about some of, you know, the insurance policies, people just, their coverage dropping completely.
Yep, exactly.
So talk about that a little bit. Why are some people's policies, or why are carriers just completely stopping?
Yep, so this is a big thing right now in Texas. So Texas obviously has a lot of loss. We suffer quite a bit of loss, obviously, from storms, from, you know, water, from, you know, freezing pipes, things like that. And so when those type of things happen, unfortunately, everybody pays the cost on it. And so what that does is that causes everybody else's premium to go up. And what it is that a lot of these carriers, unfortunately, when an agent like myself or an agent that you're working with doesn't gather the correct data, what ends up happening is the insurance company comes back and takes a look at the risk to make sure that the information that you provided as the agent is all correct. And unfortunately, sometimes you're not really getting all the data, the true data. You know, that a lot of this information comes from Verisk, which is a company that basically takes the data from subdivisions, from, you know, these newer homes, or just the location of these areas, and say, ultimately that could be, you know, the exterior of this home is stucco or stone or something like that. And so they won't always allow the agent to change that information because they lock it down and they don't want you to access that information. So you'll write the policy will get written, and then an inspection is done within that 60 days of the effective date. They go out there, they see, oh wait, there's, you know, attributes that are a lot different that, you know, was explained on the policy. So now we have to update this information. And so when they update that information, what ends up happening is that premium will end up going up because of the fact that that rebuild cost was off. You know, depending on the roof, depending on the roof type, the roof age, depending on the exterior walls, also the interior, or what we call basic or builder's grade or custom, semi-custom. All of those things come into play whenever they do the inspection, because they want to make sure that they're insuring the home for the right value.
So as a homeowner, what can homeowners do when they're, say that they call you, they're getting an insurance quote? At that point, what information do you feel like maybe, is it because they don't know what they're supposed to be providing, or do you think some insurance agents aren't asking the right questions, or how can a homeowner basically avoid that happening to them?
So a lot of it is really just the due diligence of the agent,
Okay.
really honestly making sure that you're working with somebody that's reputable, and it's just not in it for the sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, the agent needs to be asking these questions. A lot of it comes back to underwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And, at the end of the day, the underwriter makes the final decision on that, whether or not that risk is acceptable for that carrier. So that agent needs to make sure that during that call or during that visit that they're getting all the information that they can, not necessarily just on the home, but also the risk of who's in the home. Are there boarders? Are there going to be people who are renting from them that live inside the home? Is there, a separate structure that's an additional dwelling unit that somebody's going to live in? Is somebody going to be residing in that specific location as well? All of this information, if that's missed, and then the underwriter or the inspector goes in and does the inspection, and they come back and the underwriter reviews it and sees that some of the information was either just not represented in the beginning, they'll go back in and they'll just adjust it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that could be detrimental because they may assume that risk is something that is not part of their appetite. And so at that point, they don't even want to be on that risk.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
So what I'm also hearing too is if they don't have all the information, it's not, kind of goes back to like with interest rates. I always say like the lowest rate may not be the best rate, and sometimes people are like, why? Which I can always dive into if people are like, hey, what does that even mean? Same with insurance though. Like if you're shopping insurance, the lowest policy does not always mean the best policy because
Exactly.
you may not have enough coverage or the coverage that you really need because your agent did not gather enough information up front. To your point, maybe it's just about the sale. So when you're shopping insurance agents or having your insurance agent like you shopping for them, when you're asking more questions, it's only because you are trying to protect them as a homeowner,
Exactly.
just like we do on the lending side. Sometimes I say, hey, I'm gathering as much information to find you the best possible answer solution.
Exactly.
Same thing with insurance. So if your agent's not asking a lot of questions, then
to be honest with you, they're not thinking about you as the insured, because at the end of the day, they're not the agent too. For me, I was an underwriter. I started off as an underwriter, so everything that I look at, I want to make sure that I'm asking those questions in the beginning. I mean, I'm not perfect. Things happen. Things slip through the cracks. Nobody can get all the information all the time, but that's what they have that inspection for. But if you do your part as the agent and you ask all the questions that you need to ask and go by whatever your script is, then you ultimately are saving that insured from the hassle of either having to find new coverage somewhere else or having that premium go way up because the information was incorrect. So just really focusing on working with somebody who knows what they're doing, who knows what they're talking about, and can explain the policy.
Yeah.
Not just say, here's the coverage, and then never talk to you.
Yeah.
Because in the reality is that, especially where I live in Liberty Hill, I have a lot of insureds in the area that, have had that where they have a sell or they buy a policy and they don't ever hear from the agent again, and then something happens and they're like, wait, I didn't talk to that agent at all, ever. What I want is I want people to know that they can contact me, whether, not just at the beginning, but during the process and during the term of your policy. Know what you're paying for. It's exactly what you said. Those policies that you purchase, if you're looking just for a low-end policy, when you have that loss and it's a water backup loss, and then you find out, oh wait, I didn't have that endorsement on there, you're pretty much screwed, unfortunately, because they're not going to cover that loss. You didn't have it on the policy, and at the end of the day, for an additional $30, $40 for the year to cover you $10,000 in water backup,
That's
or however,
huge.
I mean, and you wouldn't believe how many people have severe losses, and all they had to do was pay $40 or $50 for the year.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's tough. Inflation is really bad right now. But don't nickel and dime your home. Remember, your home, if you have a loss, is to be rebuilt. I look at insurance as hazard insurance and not cosmetic insurance. You want to look at it like, okay, if I have a $1,200 loss, I should be doing it out of my own pocket. You don't want to file a claim for something like that. Use it for what it is, hazard insurance.
Yeah. It's funny, whenever I review numbers, like even my mortgage coach, it actually says hazard insurance, not homeowner's insurance.
Yep.
So I explain to people that it is homeowner's insurance, but we also refer to it as hazard insurance because
Exactly.
you want people to realize what what that is.
What it is, exactly. Because, a lot of people do get that mistaken, especially when they, because there's a warranty involved, right? So you purchase a home and you have a 1-year warranty that they automatically, that's a $500 warranty that they pay for that year. What that is basically, just to make sure that if something happens during that first year, that they go in and say, hey, is this wear and tear? Is this something that, is covered under that? Most of the time it's not. But that's warranty. That's completely separate from hazard insurance. Hazard insurance is what that exactly means. It's insurance in case you have a catastrophe, a fire, loss, theft, things like that, but not anything that we would consider like cosmetic. And I'm having these discussions with people a lot now, just because when they file a claim, it hurts them, especially if it's just a small frivolous claim that they could have done on their own, and it's close to the deductible already, but now they've wasted a claim. Your first claim for wind is free, basically, and then anything after that is a surcharge, especially for water claims or anything outside of your traditional wind claim.
Yeah, I love what you said too, talking about the difference between a home warranty and homeowner's insurance or hazard insurance. A lot of people go, okay, I have this home warranty. What is the difference between that and, homeowner's insurance? It's kind of like when somebody says, what's the difference between a home inspection and an appraisal?
Exactly.
And they're completely two different things.
Yep.
And sometimes I think people, especially homeowners that, might be a new homeowner, don't know the difference. So I love that. We'll probably put some more information in the comments just to compare, to make sure people know what they're covered with their home warranty or where to go to look. And then same with the homeowner's insurance. Yep. The other question I had for you is, say that with, premiums going up, what are some cost savings things that you might ask your clients, that might be able to save them money on their premiums?
So, the biggest thing right now is really finding out where the location of your residence is, right? So if you're in the process of purchasing a home, these are the things that you didn't really look at before. Where the location, is it rural? Does it have a paid fire department that's in the area? Does it have a volunteer fire department?
That's interesting. So is there a difference in the cost versus if there's a paid fire department versus a volunteer fire department?
It does, yep. It's a rating factor, and it could be based off, and I don't want to get into the specifics of it because it's just an insurance jargon you don't need to know, but they have protection classes specifically with fire. Georgetown, for example, we have a lot of areas that have a lot of brush, right? And we can go out towards like Andice or, we're any of these places out here that may not have a fire department that's right there. So you have a lot of brush around, and they can take that into, as far as underwriting is concerned, they can look at that and go, we just don't want that risk. Or in general, they're gonna look at the protection class, and it's gonna be rated based on the protection class. Say you don't have an active fire alarm that's being monitored, or a burglar alarm that's being monitored, and you're way out in the country, they're going to penalize you for that in a sense. They're going to rate that policy, and you're gonna be paying a higher premium because of the location. When things change, or maybe the subdivision grows out in that area and they grow and they put in a fire department that is paid, they'll change the protection class, and ultimately that can change the rating of that policy. But you really have to look at that in the very beginning, and that goes for whether it's in a rural area where there's a lot of brush and ultimately it could be a fire, or where there's a lot of water, just water in general. Houston, Galveston, Corpus Christi, all those places. You really have to look at that first and say, let me find out whether or not I can even get insurance there, and is it going to break the pocketbook? Because more than likely, if you're on an area like either rural where there's fire or there's water, you're more than likely going to be paying quite a bit more just to have that specific policy. And more than likely, you're going to, and I always tell people, if you know a location that may be rural or you're thinking about it, call me and let me run that information first so I can give you an idea. Is it in a floodplain? Are you going to be required flood? There are a lot of these nuances that unfortunately people just aren't aware of, and that's what we're doing to answer those questions.
Well, and that's what I love too, is because on the lending side, they're coming to us to run them a monthly payment scenario, and I've talked to you about this a lot, going, you've educated me, because we used to, estimate $150 a month for insurance, and then, it might be closer to $250 or $300, and now either one, the buyer can't qualify because we qualify them, with too low of an estimate, and it's always better to overestimate, I always say, on everything, but that is something that is great for them to be able to contact you and just say, here's the area I'm looking in, and that way you can look that stuff up. The other thing, going back to what you said about the security system, I like to tell clients too, hey, even if your policy might be higher because you don't have that. So if you have that and you're worried about the cost of that monthly expense, it might offset, if not save you,
Yes.
by just paying a monthly fee to have, you know, better security systems for the fire, burglary stuff versus not.
Exactly. And you know, there used to be this whole like 20% thing, and in all honesty, it really isn't based off of that anymore. It's based off the premium, right? So if you have a higher premium, you're gonna have a higher percentage of your discount for that a burglar alarm. Now, you know, these days we have Ring, we can self-monitor a lot of that, which is fine. If we're in an area that you live in a subdivision and, you know, everybody has cameras, you know, and you don't feel like you need to have, you know, security systems that's actually being monitored, you know, that's up to you. You know,
Yeah.
honestly, I do that for myself. But the reality is when you live out in an area where it's more rural, and in fact, some of these carriers now are basically saying, if you don't have a monitor alarm and you are in a protection class 10, they will either decline you or they're gonna say you have to have this and you have to show proof that you have a monitored burglar alarm and fire alarm in order to even have them insure your home.
So what I'm hearing from Aaron too is the more that you can talk with your agent about all these details, you can help find a policy that is best for them, that you can also save them money ultimately by telling them here are the things that you need
Exactly.
to help with your premium, even if it's still going to be higher than we're used to.
Yep.
So I think that was very helpful. I could go into so many other things, but
Oh,
they can
there's so
always, I
much.
mean, you know, the pools, the trampolines. I mean, there's so many things that, you know, we've talked about, but reach out to Aaron if you want to kind of go through. And I think it's always good to check in. If something changes with your house, like what if you
Yes.
do add a security system or you add a trampoline or something changes with your house? I mean, it's always good to contact you
Exactly.
and say, hey, do we need to update our policy because of X, Y, Z?